This might be one of the first quest mods I've ever actually came across for Skyrim that is so high quality that I'm actually surprised this isn't something that already existed in the game. Identity Crisis is a quest mod from Slimesire that if you have not played yet and you are able to download and play this mod, I highly advise that you do so before watching this video, as I will be going over the mod and spoiling a lot of things. This was an experience that I was not expecting, so I want to be sure that those who have yet to try this get to try it for themselves. To summarize things without spoiling it, this is a lore-friendly quest mod that takes place northeast of Windhelm in an asylum, which has been infested by the Mad God himself, leaving these haunted halls to look like they were actually from the Shivering Isles DLC in Oblivion. This asylum was once a hollowed house of reason and rehabilitation of Skyrim's lunatics, but the madness of Sheogorath has slowly crept its way into these dark halls, where you as the adventurer will journey through trying to figure out, what happened to this place, why does it feel like you're starting to lose your mind while you're creeping through the asylum halls, and what importance this strange lone adventure outside of the main door of the asylum has in all of this. Identity Crisis is a quest mod that I believe that everybody should try at least once, especially for those who want to do more of an evil playthrough in Skyrim, because some of the rewards for this quest are perfect for that. The mod itself isn't very long. It's somewhere between 40 minutes and maybe 2 hours at most if you're struggling with fights and trying to figure out what you need to do next, or if you're just simply wanting to explore everything in depth. As for completing the quest, you will obtain some rather powerful new Sheogorath-themed weapons and spells, as well as a pretty nice set of armor. And better yet, an incredible new player home that is perfect for those who want to roleplay as a worshipper of Sheogorath, or just any character that leans more toward the dark side. This quest is also fully voiced by a very talented voice actor by the name of Daniel Hodge, who after hearing their voice acting for the first time, I actually thought that somehow the mod author somehow managed to get Wes Johnson himself to voice the characters. Again, before we jump into this, I advise anybody who would like to play this mod to check it out before watching this video, as I will be going over my experience and there will be spoilers. Alright, so to start the quest, we need to head up to an abandoned stable northeast of Windhelm, and there wasn't anything very direct as to how to actually trigger the quest, but apparently in order to start, all we need to do is just sit on this bench. Once we do sit on the bench, it does transport us via a carriage to the asylum stable just down the road from the asylum itself. The road is very foggy and it has a very creepy atmosphere, but I mean, it is an asylum after all, and I've never really known an asylum to be sunshine and rainbows. The area itself is very quiet with no signs of life, just some ruined buildings, which adds to the creep factor of this place, and a shrine of Julianos with a lot of lit lanterns hanging from a rope, which gives the impression that this seemingly abandoned asylum might not actually be abandoned after all. There's also some shiny loot around the shrine, which I'm sure that Julianos won't mind us taking. I ended up exploring the outer area near the shrine a bit more to see if there was, any more loot in the abandoned buildings, but I didn't really find much, and before I even realized it, it had become night, which really ended up setting the tone for this entire area. Heading to the north gate of the asylum, the closed gate begins to open for us, which again makes us question if there is somebody around the area, or if this place is just truly haunted. But it turns out that the answer is both, so that's great. Going through the gate, we discover a man named Paladin Vtuber, who is in some pretty interesting armor. I'm not too sure why, but this kind of gave me Dark Souls vibes for some reason. But anyways, the dude's just kind of sitting outside on a coffin in front of the asylum and right next to a small gravesite, as I'm sure that any sane person would just casually do. And this was when I realized that the voice acting in this mod was no joke.
What? Who are you? Standing there, gawking about. You're not thinking of going in there, are you?
This mod was already turning out to be way more impressive than I expected, but I found it interesting that they even added a small echo sound from him wearing the helmet, which was just a crazy detail that I feel like gets overlooked pretty often. But anyways, we talk to the strange man who, of course, is confused about who we are, and then warns us about going into the asylum. He mentions that the place was the Northern Asylum of Julianos, with the keyword being was, which hinted that something bad had happened here, which is kind of obvious considering that this is a quest about an asylum, and most stories about asylums typically end bad. Vtuber is an interesting character, as he kind of gives the impression of just being some tired warrior who's, been through some shit. But quickly after our initial dialogue with him, he ends up warning us not to go into the asylum, but then basically just tells us to go into the asylum to take a peek.
Go on, have a peek. You'll see.
And this kind of raised a lot of red flags, making me wonder if whatever happened here has taken a massive mental toll on this soldier, or perhaps that the soldier himself might have just been an escaped patient of the asylum. Either way, we go in because we're badass adventurers and nobody's really going to prevent me from exploring a possibly historic place. and it's still the loot. After entering the building, it is made immediately clear that the quality of this mod is just, just look at this. This looks insane. And of course, this is only made more clear once we actually make our way to the center of the room, where the voice of Sheogorath, who at first I could have sworn was Wes Johnson himself, begins to fill our head.
Here lies our grave. What a tragedy. A tragedy? 'Twas a wild rumpus, it was. A regular shindig. Only a fool would think so callously of our demise. Do you have no memory of who you're speaking to? I'm the Prince of Fools! Who are you, anyway? Me? Who are you? Shh. Have I gone mad? Or has someone entered our midst? Who? Where? Should we hide? Welcome, mortal! Make yourself at home. Have a cup of tea. No doubt you're wondering what you've just stumbled upon. Nothing good, I can assure you. Oh, tut, pay this one no mind. He's a stick in the mud, he is. As I said before, go on, have a peek. You'll all see.
Again, we hear the phrase, take a peek and you'll see, which is exactly what Paladin Vtuber said, which made me wonder if maybe the Mad God did in fact afflict him. But anyways, after Sheogorath invites us to take a look around the place to witness what had happened for ourselves, it is made very clear that the Mad God's influence has taken over this place, as the exact same foliage from Oblivion's Shivering Isles DLC has made its way into these dark halls, which just does a great job at adding to the overall atmosphere and the story that is being told. In the center of the room, I noticed that there was a center staircase going down, but it was blocked off, and later on, it becomes very clear as to why it was blocked off. But in the moment, I just kind of tried burning and cutting the webs, but was unable to really do anything to them. Around the central room is a hallway that goes around the entire room, connecting it to 4 rooms, each at the corners of the central room. The first room that I entered was one to the northeast, and in it, we find ourselves in a circular room filled with books, a few cages, and a table with some bloody rags and a potion, including a bottle called Brain of a Lunatic. At first, I thought that this was somehow hinting that the staff were cannibals and that they were eating the patients here. I don't really know why my brain jumped at that, but looking back at it, it seems to make more sense that this was likely just an area for examining either the dead to look for potential infections that might be causing these patients' insanity, or maybe they were just experimenting on the living in general. I mean, in our own real world, there have been many stories of asylums wrongfully performing torturous experiments on their patients, so that's also very likely a possible reason. My first theory, though, is mainly based around the fact that there is a skull, a hammer, sculpting tools, and a jar with a brain in it, which kind of leads me to thinking that they were looking for potential infections or something in the brain themselves. But then again, I'm no doctor, and there were also locked pens where patients were likely kept, so it's also possible that the staff that worked here might have been a little bit more insane than the actual patients themselves. On the other end of the room, there is a staircase going up, but it was blocked off, so at this point, I just decided to turn around and instead head over to the northwest corner for more clues. This is where things started to get a little bit more strange. In the second room, I found some strange roots that seem to have consumed the corpse of a man who worked here named Brother Jerome. While inspecting the corpse, the room began to shake. Tempted to leave, I noticed that the door was now blocked by some sort of barrier, and then boom, our first enemy has shown itself. A Spriggan called a Gnarlwife has spawned from what I assumed to be the very roots that were infesting the corpse. Going into this mod, I wasn't really sure what level I needed to be for this quest, and I believe when I did this, I was around level 16 at the time, so I kind of just figured that it would be fine. But the fight itself was pretty challenging, and I ended up resorting to using the Conjure Undying Ghost spell to help me out, which is a Creation Club spell that is added to the game with the Anniversary Edition of Skyrim. This made the fight a lot easier, and using the Ghost as well as some well-placed elemental bolts, the Gnarlwife went down without too much trouble. Killing the Gnarlwife immediately teleported us to a strange hallway that looked even more like something that was straight out of the Shivering Isles DLC. And walking through the hallway, I ended up finding a very large room full of more of those hanging lanterns that we saw outside of the asylum by the Shrine of Julianos. In the center of the room, there was a podium with a strange book that was open and ready to be read. Voices were also beginning to fill my head as I approached the book, which added a bit of unease to the already creepy atmosphere. But it also made me wonder if the powerful Dragonborn was actually immune or not to the effects aspects of Sheogorath's madness. Upon reaching the book, I noticed that it was called the Book of Riddles, and I'm not exactly great at riddles, so this kind of made me a little bit nervous, as reading it, of course, did give us a riddle to solve. I watch you watching me. Don't close your eyes. There are daggers in every shadow. They called me mad and locked me away. But I know the truth. What am I? This actually wasn't hard to figure out, as the answer was paranoia, but I decided to choose mania at first to see what would happen if we did choose something wrong, but it just ends up shocking you. So nothing too drastic. Choosing the correct answer unlocks the entrance that is up the stairs, where we can actually find a ghost taking a nap on a stone slab. The ghost didn't really do anything, and there wasn't really anything that I could find to interact with, so with my caveman brain, I just decided to try solving this in the most intelligent way that I could think possible, by gently waking up the ghost with magic. And apparently, the ghost was that of Brother Jerome, the very person whose corpse was being consumed by the roots outside. Or at least I'm going to tell myself that it was the ghost of Jerome and that I was just putting it to rest, as it's also very likely that I was just entering the mind of the corpse to sever the spirit or soul of Jerome, and I was just actually killing him. The first theory helps me sleep better at night, so I'm just going to go with that one. Once we are teleported back in front of the rooted corpse, I was given the asylum key as well as a new item called Mind of a Madman. Wasn't really sure what this was for, and even now I still don't 100% know what this was for, but I don't really care because it's loot and the name sounds cool, so yeah. There wasn't really much else to explore here, as any potential passage was blocked off, so I ended up just heading down to the southwestern corner of the building. But before I made it to this room, my ADHD explorer brain kicked in, and I noticed, hey, there's the blue ghost thing in the center of the main room. So me being the idiot and just, thinking that this figure was probably a passive NPC, I don't know why I thought that, I tried to go talk to it, and this kind of led to a bit of a jump scare, as well as me taking an ice shard up the ass. Yeah, I'm not really proud of that one. So now with the battle being inevitable, I decided to summon up my own ghost to fight for me, as if this was some kind of Pokemon fight, only to notice that we weren't alone and another fighter has joined the arena. A 2v1 Pokemon battle didn't really seem that fair to me, so I decided to treat this as if it was Power World and kill Chortle by smacking my own ghost with a sword. Look, I promise I'm good at this game, okay? After the first Chortle died, the battle became relatively easy, and we took down the second one with no problems at all. But apparently, that wasn't all, because as I made my way to the southwestern corner, we found the evolved version of Chortle, which was now named Chuff, and we ended up duking it out for another 2v1 battle, which luckily resulted in our victory. With the ghostly creatures taken care of, I was able to explore the southwestern room in peace. There was a bit of an Apocrypha vibe going on here, as the room was just kind of filled with mountains of books, but I also noticed that there was some holding cells and even a stretcher, which led me back to the idea that the staff here actually were just a bunch of psychopaths. Oh, and I found a bucket full of cherry Kool-Aid, but there wasn't a clean cup anywhere, so rip. Other than that, there wasn't really much in here. But one thing that was different in this room versus the other two rooms that we explored was that the staircase that was in the back of the room was not blocked this time. So I decided to take the winding staircase up to the second floor, only to find that the floor was covered in ice, alongside more holding cells, more cages, and even the strange Shivering Isles-like roots that were once again blocking our path. This ended up looking like a dead end after all, so I just went back down and over to the last of the four corner rooms, which was to the southeast. This corner also had holding cells for the criminally insane. However, in the center of this room was a shrine of Juliano's alongside some pretty decent loot. The staircase in this room was also blocked off like the first two rooms, except this one was only blocked by a locked door, of which we did happen to have the key for. So unlocking the door and traveling up the staircase, of course, took us back to the second floor. But unlike last time, this is where things started to get more interesting, and we kind of found ourselves in a bit of a situation. Immediately, once I got up to the second floor, I was attacked by more Chuffs and Chortles, but luckily, they didn't put up that much of a fight since I learned all their tactics from earlier. But anyways, after dealing with them and heading down this hallway, I realized that it was just connected to the second floor of the other corner rooms that we were in, except it wasn't blocked off this time. Instead, we were kind of pushed down a rather linear Shivering Isles plant life-filled hallway protected by another Chortle, until I found this body that was stuck in what I really, really hope was just spiderwebs and not something else, with mushrooms growing out of it. Walking up to the corpse and interacting with it causes us to once again begin to hear Sheogorath's voice.
You see, or did we kill ourselves? I can't remember. All their tired sermons, dusty volumes, endless ramblings of logic and order made us positively batty, it did! The thumbscrews and knives played a wee part too. Lucky for us, death is rather easy as compared to your kind. A pity I would have preferred annihilation. Oh, hush. Now, listen well, little mortal. What they couldn't have known is that our demise would have dire consequences. Or was it dour consequences? Whatever the case, a seed of madness was planted in this very establishment. Its tendrils spread even now, as you've no doubt seen, twisting the mundane into, well, something less mundane. But every sapling needs its nurturing, some tender love and care to help it grow, and that's where you come in, little mortal. The minds of those insufferable priests belong to me now, but there's one who remains at large. Bring the mind of wee paladin Bertrand into the fold. Feed it to the seed of unreason. Fertilizer, you might say. Manure for our fetid dung heap. And I shall grant you my boon.
So based on what he was saying, Sheogorath wants us to help him with obtaining the mind of Paladin Bertrand, as he had already claimed the minds of all the other priests of the asylum, and Bertrand was the last that he wished to collect. After the Mad God's ramblings, I was given a book called Testament of Brother Theophile, I think that's how you pronounce it, and a new quest objective called Capture Bertrand's Mind. And holy shit, I did not expect to get as lost trying to figure out this quest as I did, and over half of my entire recording was actually just me running around trying to figure out what the hell I needed to do because I must have gotten distracted, and I didn't realize that I was given both a new spell and a book after our dialogue with Sheogorath. At first, I thought that I needed to go kill Bertrand, so I tried doing that, and it was a very, very difficult fight, but even after successfully killing him, it turned out that I was wrong. But what I ended up needing to actually do was I needed to cast this new spell that I obtained at Bertrand to enter his mind. But first, it's story time. So to quickly summarize the book that we obtained, as well as to better understand what's going on here, Brother Theophile, one of the priests here that worked at the asylum, as well as the author of this journal, mentions how Brother Jerome was torturing the inmates and how he would laugh while he was cutting into them. Theophile begins to lose hope that Julianos is no longer listening to the priests here at the asylum and seems to center the reason for his god abandoning the asylum to be the cause of a new inmate who apparently had no name but only responded to the name Sheogorath. Theophile just kind of shrugs this off, assuming that it was just some kind of delusion of the man being insane, but did note how committed the no-named man was to this role. Days go by and the priest appears to be certain that the unnamed inmate is the source of everything bad that's going on at the asylum. He mentions how the man seems to provoke Brother Jerome into even more mischievous acts, and how Jerome's quote-unquote treatments of the inmates have become more like blood sport. Theophile is desperate of finding a way to end the madness happening here, but comments on how the paladins have all been conscripted to fighting the Nord's War, and that the only one that remains is Paladin Bertrand, who would be of little help as he too is inflicted with the madness. 3 days later, the priest wrote, "I killed him." In an act of desperation and certainty that the unnamed man was the source of what was happening within these halls, the priest had attempted to perform an exorcism upon the inmate, but lost control and ended up gruesomely killing the man who claimed to be Sheogorath. He then mentions that how killing the man did not stop the madness from spreading throughout the asylum, but instead seemed to make it way worse. Roots were beginning to spread throughout the entire halls, as if another world was starting to merge in with their own. Days go by, and the last entry simply states, "None of us are ourselves." This leads us to believing that the madness had fully taken over the halls of the asylum, as well as the lives of those dwelling inside. All right, so back to the spell that we obtained earlier. It's called Inveigle. I'm very bad with words, look. I'm close enough, okay? But anyways, its sole purpose is literally just to be used on Paladin Bertrand to enter his mind and gain entry so that we can take over his mind for Sheogorath. So after making my way back through the asylum and back outside, where Paladin Bertrand was still sitting on a coffin, I cast a spell and we ended up entering his mind. Here we find a floating book, which once again is another riddle. This time the riddle says, "I shine brightest when we're alone. Don't let the others see. What would they think? They'd call you mad. Just you and I, no one else. What am I?" To which me, being the amazingly smart riddle master that I am, instantly knew that the answer was a secret, which was correct. But by answering the riddle, a form of the paladin had actually appeared within his own mind, and we were kind of forced to fight him. So that fight was very painful, and I died a lot. But eventually, with a lot of skill and help from a ghostly friend, I managed to beat the paladin and we spawned back into the main room of the asylum, where Sheogorath then congratulates me and then suggests that I help carry out his madness, since as long as there is even a bit of madness in the world, he will hold power among men. Or at least that's how I interpret it. But anyways, the quest is now done. Cobwebs blocking the center stairwell have exploded, and finally this allows us to explore what lurks beneath the haunted halls of the asylum, as well as obtaining our rewards for helping the mad god. So, what rewards do we get for completing the quest? Well, quite a few things actually. So much so that I actually missed majority of the rewards while playing through this, and I actually had to go back to get the footage for this since I didn't realize that there were so many rewards that were actually just kind of hidden away. To start with, once we make our way down the staircase, we will actually enter into a new area deep below the asylum. Adventuring forward will lead you to a table with some shimmering essence, which will be important for later, alongside a tattered note, which it just kind of has some rambling on it from what I can tell, so nothing too important. But the important part of this note is that when you read it, you'll obtain the formulas to be able to craft the Mind Cleave weapon and the Enthrall spell tome. Crafting the spell tome will give us a spell that can actually turn people into our own thrall for 1 hour, but at the cost of a shimmering essence. I'm actually not too sure if shimmering essence respawns or not, as I couldn't find any information online about it. I would assume that it would be added to the loot tables or something, but I'd be cautious on how you use it for now. If you guys do know anything about this as to whether or not it does respawn, or even if you can grow it, then be sure to let me know down in the comments, as I'm sure that would help out a lot of people. As for Mind Cleaver, you can actually craft this unique weapon by using a great sword fragment, which you will find in the corpse of Brother Theophile. The weapon has a unique design, deals 21 damage, and has a description that is too long to fit, so this is all you get to see. Also near this table was a canopic jar. I still haven't figured out what the deal is with this, and I'm not sure if it's, one of the puzzling secrets that I have yet to uncover, but interacting with it just prompts us with a dialogue box that says, what was this specifically crafted canopic jar used to contain? Pretty strange, but for now, it's just going to be a mystery to me. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we of course have this new player home as well, which is incredible. It keeps the whole Shivering Isle look, which makes it a much more unique player home than most of the houses in the base game, and everything that you would need from a house is all here. There's plenty of places to stash your items, a unique forge and alchemy table for all of your crafting needs, including crafting the spell tome and the weapon from earlier, and a portal system that allows you to teleport to 3 different areas within Skyrim, providing that you have the mines to feed whatever this thing is in order to unlock the portals. Overall, the house has a lot of utility, which will be very useful to anyone, and again, the design of this place is just so well made. In the room where you can find the portal, you will actually find the skull of enlightened madman. This took me a while to figure out, but it turns out that this actually relates back to the brain of lunatic bottle that we found earlier on in the quest. So what we need to do is consume the bottle, which will teleport us to a new realm that we can explore. In here, you will need to explore to try and find a bottle called Memory of a Madman. And then you'll need to make your way to a room where you'll need to get past this enemy. But be warned, this guy is much harder than anything else in this entire quest mod, but you will need to either sneak past him or fight him in order to get an item called Heart of Order, which will be used to teleport out of this place. But once you do manage to get it and make your way back to this crazy looking crystal thing, interacting with the crystal will teleport you back to where you originally were within Skyrim. From here, you just want to go back over to the skull of an enlightened man and interact with it, which will allow us to offer the memory that we just found, and doing so, once again, will teleport us to another realm. This time, there are no enemies, but when you do this, I would advise that you bring a Daedric Heart along with you, as you will need it. But if you do forget to bring one, then no worries, because you can leave this place by interacting with the staff in the back of the room, and then just coming back later. But anyways, while you are inside of here, you will be able to retake the Mind of a Madman that is located behind the podium, which then can be used to unlock one of the 3 portal locations for the house. But the main reason we're here is for that sweet, sweet loot. So next to the podium are these 2 braziers, which by interacting with one and giving it a Daedric Heart will give you a set of rewards based on which one you offer the heart to. You can only choose one of the reward sets, so choose wisely. But by choosing the Demented Flame of Agnon, you will be rewarded with a new power to conjure a permanent chuff to fight by your side, provided that you feed it a shimmering essence. And you will also be given this cowl, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name name of this, but according to the description, it is a vaunted relic in the canon of the Shivering Isles. Wearing this cowl will give you a passive ability that will muffle your footsteps and increase your sneak skill by 30 points, so it's perfect for anybody who's trying to play as an assassin-styled character. However, if you do choose to give the heart to the Manic Flame, then you will be rewarded with the Conjure Churtle power, which works just like the Chuff power, as well as a new item in your miscellaneous tab called Heart of Arden Salt, which is very much just a lantern that looks like it came directly from a Dark Souls game. Equipping it will provide you with 2 new passive abilities. The first one is called Blood of the Saint, which will increase your max health by 50 points, which is a lot. The second one is called Singing Sinews, and it will provide you with a 10-point bonus to combat healing. So for the warriors and spellblades out there, this reward set is likely what you'll be more interested in. These aren't the last of our rewards though, as we still have 3 more things to find. The next 2 rewards can be found by going all the way back to the entrance of the asylum, where we will find the corpse of Paladin Bertrand. He will be holding out a sword called the Sundered Greatsword, which at first, I thought that this was the only reward that we were given from his corpse, but if you look closer, you'll notice that you can actually interact with the corpse, which will allow you to loot the very armor set that Paladin Bertrand wore himself. And finally, for the last of the rewards for completing the Identity Crisis quest mods, or at least the rewards that I was able to find, what we will need to do is fully unlock the portal inside of our newly acquired home. To do so, we just need to feed the mines that we collected throughout the video to this thing, which will unlock 3 locations that we can travel to. Once that has been done, after we travel to one of those places, you should receive a prompt that says, although you cannot explain it, you find yourself drawn to the asylum courtyard. This is our hint that we need to travel back to the front of the asylum once again, where we will find some kind of strange plant life thing that has been growing in the center of the courtyard, and interacting with it will give us the option to consecrate the Sundered Greatsword that we found earlier. This will upgrade the blade into a new blade called the Discordant Greatsword, which will make it a little bit more powerful, as well as provide it with a very nice enchantment, which I'll let you guys figure out that little mystery for yourselves. I mean, I can't be spoiling all of the mysteries here. And there we have it, the Identity Crisis quest mod and all of its rewards, or at least the ones that I was able to figure out anyways. I know that I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but this quest is one that I believe that everybody should experience. And I'm surprised that this was just some random free mod that I found on Nexus and not an actual DLC for Skyrim, as it fits so well. And the amount of effort that actually went into making this quest mod and all of the other things that are inside of this, it just feels so polished. This is one of those experiences that I feel will stick with me for a while, and I'm so glad that I actually managed to stumble across this mod and finally give it a chance. But with all that said, it is time to wrap up this video, so thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it. I know that this is a bit of a different style of video than some of my others, but I felt like experimenting and trying something new just to kind of see how I liked it. Also, recently on my channel, I hit 1,000 subs, which is absolutely mind-blowing to see that so many people are supporting the random videos that I've just been posting for fun over the last few years. So to those who have been supporting me up to this point, thank you guys. I appreciate it more than you guys will ever know. I know most of my recent videos have been very Skyrim focused just because the Elder Scrolls series is my favorite of all time, and I've recently just kind of been in a Skyrim mood. But I do make videos exploring and talking about a variety of horror games and RPGs, both old school and modern, as I do have a love for these genres and the many subgenres included within. So if that sounds like something that you might be interested in, or if you just want more Fallout or Elder Scrolls mods or challenges, then be sure to subscribe to join the community and maybe stop by my stream sometime over on Twitch, as I occasionally record some of the footage that's found here on my live streams while hanging out with my community. Also, feel free to leave a comment letting me know what you thought of the video, and if there are any rewards from this mod that you would find interesting using in your playthrough, let me know which one that would be. Again, thank you all for watching and for all of the support. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you guys in the next video.